Hey everybody, welcome to art class. Hope you're all doing great. So we've been learning a little bit about abstract art and how to make art with just shapes, lines, and colors. And in our last project, we learned how to separate the front from the back by using different colors. So some things stood out in the front and some things looked like they were in the back. This week, I'd like to do a little exercise with you with just circles and a pencil, no colors. And we're going to make some things look like they're in the front and some things look like they're in the back without any colors. So this is going to be a little different, and it's a really fun and cool exercise. And we are going to make something that looks like this. This could be a lot of different things. It could be maybe marbles that rolled around on a table. I don't really know. It kind of has an abstract quality because even though we do see circles, we don't really know what we're looking at. So this is a completely different way of making art with just shapes. The first thing we're gonna have to do before we make something like this is learn how to just shade a circle and bring a circle to life with shadows to make a circle turn into something more like a sphere, which is a three-dimensional circle. So there are a few things I would like to point out about this before I show you what we will be doing this week. So notice this guy all the way back here. He looks really far away. And this guy up here looks like he's probably the closest circle. There's a few reasons that I was able to get that to look that way on a flat sheet of paper. I took a flat sheet of paper and made it look like the project was going into the distance. When you have shapes that are bigger, they appear as though they are closer. When you have shapes that are farther away, they get smaller. The smaller things are, the smaller they appear. So that was one little trick to make it appear as though this paper had some depth, like it was deep into the page. Another thing that brings this drawing of just circles to life is this line right here. It's just a line going across my page, but suddenly with that line, we now feel like there's some kind of surface here. That line is called the horizon line, where the land and the sky meet. Now, land could mean a table, it could mean grass. In this case, it looks like a very flat, smooth surface. This is the surface, this is the sky or the room around the table. Okay, so that horizon line is very important because it starts to give our circles a setting. The main focus of this week, though, is going to be the shadows. Notice all my shadows are going in the same direction. That is because I felt that the light source, the sun or whatever light is in the room, was over here. When the light is over here, shadows go this way. Shadows always move away from the light. So if the light is over here, the shadows would have gone this way. Wherever the light is, that is where the lightest part of the circle will be. The farther away you get from the light, you can see I added some shading. It's very light here because this is where, let's call it the sun. If the sun is here, then this part of the circle is illuminated. It's light. The farther away I get from the sun, the darker the object becomes, and then it casts a shadow on the table. The shadow is the darkest part of my drawing. The farther away I get, the lighter my shadows become and the smaller my objects become. When something is close to you, you could see a lot more detail in the colors and shadows, and when it's far away, it gets lighter. So this illusion of going big and dark to small and light, it's a big word, it's called atmospheric perspective. So with this trick of using atmospheric perspective, you can make a pretty cool drawing with just circles. So let's learn this week, first, how to shade a simple circle. And then next week, we're going to make the actual project. Okay, so all you need is a piece of paper and a pencil and definitely an eraser. Okay. Okay. So again, you'll just need a regular piece of paper, pencil, and eraser. But I'm gonna do some of my instructions with a black colored pencil because my regular pencil's not showing up too well in the video. So, but you guys should definitely just use a regular pencil. I'm just finding my black colored pencil. Okay, so I'm gonna do some of this with a regular pencil and some with a black pencil. Okay, so again, before we can go and make the final project, we're gonna do some exercises to get you ready to learn about how to make different values with your pencil. So again, values are the lightness and darkness of your object. Okay, so your darkest values are gonna be in your shadow, and your lightest values are gonna be closest to the sun. So I drew a little sun over here to show you. The sun is shining on this object and highlighting this part of the sphere. And the farther away we get from the sun, the darker. So we're going from light to dark, then it gets really dark over here, and then light again the farther away you get from the shadow. Okay, the reason for that is because this sphere is covering this part of the table and making this table very dark right here. It's casting a shadow. But the farther away we get from the sphere, the lighter it becomes because there's less of a shadow. So we go from light to dark, dark to light. Okay, now before we can ever talk about shading a sphere, you want to do some practicing just holding your pencil and getting ready with your hand muscles to practice making values that go from dark to light. So just get a piece of practice paper and you're going to hold your pencil far away from the tip so that you can hold your pencil at an angle. So you don't want to hold it up and down. And you never, even when you're trying to get really dark values, you never want to push into your paper. So I'm going to hold my hold my pencil on an angle, and I'm just going to go from dark, dark medium, so a little bit less pressure, to medium, to light medium, to very light, to white. Okay, so even in my darkest areas, I didn't go like this and really carve into my paper because that actually, it dents the paper and it makes the paper look shiny, and that kind of takes away from the whole effect that we're looking for. So we don't want to dent the paper and damage the paper. So if you're trying to make an area darker, so let's say I did one of these little exercises. But never really got as dark as I wanted. All I would need to do instead of pushing is just go over that same space again. So give it another layer. You do not have to push hard ever. If you want to go even darker, layer it again. So I'm applying medium pressure, but not so hard that I'm going to damage my paper. So sometimes you have to go over it more than once. And your eraser is a great tool for making highlights. So if you never got as light as you wanted, you can always just do a gentle erasing to make it, to lift and bring out some highlights. So this is assignment number 1 for this week, is practice making a bunch of these little value scales that go from dark to light. Just get used to holding your pencil the way that you need to hold it to do some shading. If you want to play around too with your finger, you can blend the values into each other to make it more of a smooth transition from dark to light. Okay, so just in case that's not showing up very well because I can't tell because I'm not looking through my camera right now, let's do one with my colored pencil. So this is going to show up really dark because it's a black colored pencil. And if you want to try one with a black colored pencil or a red color, you could try with any colored pencil that you want. It's the same idea. So medium pressure, lightening up a little, lightening up a lot, barely grazing the surface of my paper, to white. The only thing with colored pencils though is that you can't smudge with your finger, okay? So you kind of, it's a little bit easier to learn shading when you can actually use your finger as a smudging tool. One more time, holding my pencil at the end. The table is shaking. Each one of your value scales is gonna be a little different, which is fine. I'm going over this section just to make it a little darker. And there we go, okay? Okay, now time to bring these values to our circles. So you can use the back of your paper because again, this is just an exercise. We are not actually making this today. I would suggest practicing with small circles. The bigger a circle is, the harder it is to shade it. So the size of like a quarter is a great start. Nice and slow, make a nice circle to practice with. Tell yourself where your sun is. So just give yourself a little indication. Where is my light coming from? If my light is coming from here, I'm gonna go light to dark, dark to light from the shadow. Even the size of a penny, I think that's the size of a penny, or a dime. So, and even something as small as this is a great practice. So smaller circles are easier to shade, so that's a great way to practice. Just make circles everywhere. You're gonna get really into learning how to do this. So I remember when I first learned how to do this, I drew circles all over the place and just shaded them everywhere, all over my notebooks, everywhere. Circles were everywhere. So just make a bunch of circles and shade them in. So here we go. This is the darkest side because this is the side that's far away from the sun. So I'm starting with a medium tone. I'm not jumping right into dark because I need to save my darkest values for my shadows. This is like a medium tone. And the closer I get to the sun, the lighter I am. Notice how little my pencil strokes are, tiny, tiny little circles. Circles. Notice that I'm going in a round direction. I'm not going straight across. I'm going round. And then I get really light into the sun. It turns into a highlight. I'm going to add a second layer right here just to bring out this dark value at the bottom of my sphere. Okay, so this does take a little bit of time, okay? Now I'm gonna make my shadow. It's really dark when you're closest to the sphere. And now I'm going into my lighter values. Again, with the regular pencil, which I can't do because I'm using the colored pencil, use your finger to blend it in if you feel like it's necessary. And then also don't forget, sometimes we wind up over shading and and blending, and the whole thing winds up looking just flat gray. And that is when your eraser is your best friend, because your eraser can be used to make highlights, to kind of brighten up any areas that you over shaded and over blended. So even though your finger is a great tool, be careful with it because you don't want to overdo it and just turn the whole thing into a gray, okay? You want to have different tones throughout. So let's do that again. If you have these really tiny circles, you probably don't want to use your finger because our finger is too big. You don't really need to blend with the smaller circles. See how fast I just did that because it's small, but it still has dark to medium. So small circles are a great way to just practice at least seeing what you're trying to do and doing it quickly. Done. That was so easy. So fast. I'm just gonna add a little bit of a heavier shadow at the bottom. Okay, let's do this one together. So again, the sun's over here. This is my highlight. So I'm starting over here. Small little circles. Okay, I'm getting closer to the middle of the sphere, so I'm lightening up on my pencil, really light, and then I don't do anything over here because that's a highlight. Okay, now my shadow. I used to use my finger a lot to smudge and blend the values together, but I don't do that anymore because now I know how to just use my pencil to do it, and I do think that sometimes when we use our finger it can over smudge. So it's just a suggestion. Maybe try some with your finger and try some without and see what works for you. But yes, I actually do not use my finger to smudge anymore. Okay, there we go. So your assignment for this week is to first just get used to holding that pencil and making those value scales with the pressure. Make a bunch of those, and then make a bunch of these. Make as many as you want, make as many as you can. And then next week we will put it all together and learn how to put it into a space. Okay, so that's it. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out. Join me on Zoom. I love hearing from you guys. Hope you have fun with this project. It is a challenge, so I know you can do it, and I can't wait to see what you make. We'll see you next week.